أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم النبيين والمرسلين محمد بن عبد الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحابته أجمعين ومن استنى سنتهم واهتدى بهديهم وتبعهم بخير وإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. This lecture is about the rules of inheritance, al-mawarith, ahkam al-mawarith in Islam. Before we start, remember that the last 10 days of Ramadan can be starting actually by today, if Ramadan will be 29 days, or tomorrow, the 21st of Ramadan. It's important to provide time for ibadah. If you can take time off in the last 10 days, please do that. People are not traveling much, so these are very precious days. If you can take time off, take, so that you can pray in the night as much as you can, read Quran as much as you can, and do dhikr. Don't waste time, don't eat a lot, because then you will feel lazy, and provide time for ibadah. It's only the last third of the month, the most precious one, and also Laylatul Qadr is one of the last 10 nights. If you did your effort in Laylatul Qadr, then you will get tremendous amount of hasanat that you cannot even imagine. So focus in these 10 days and do your best, inshallah. The starting of the topic, al-mawarith, it starts, what is the topic, al-mawarith, inheritance? When someone dies, very simple, when someone dies, the belongings and the wealth of this person go to other people who are still alive. So it is related mainly to the death of someone. It takes effect by the death of someone who owns some things or some wealth, who will inherit this wealth after he or she dies. And since it is related to death, there is something that the person should do when he or she is still alive. And this is very connected to the inheritance in some scope or some context. And this is the will. The will is something that a person writes when he or she is still alive. So we will talk first about the will, the Islamic will. The definition of will in the language, al-wasiyya. Al-wasiyya is the word in Arabic, al-wasiyya. It means to give something to someone, to say that I want to give this thing to someone, and it can be connected to an event or time, or it may not be connected to an event or time. And the Islamic definition of it is that it is a gift, something to give, from someone to someone else for the benefit of that person who receives this gift or this thing that is given. And it takes effect after the death of the person who gives. So it takes effect only after the person dies, not before. So in some cases, if a person, for example, is not dead, but very sick, in a coma, and or a person who is mentally sick and cannot take any decisions and is just staying in the hospital, so this cannot be considered as dead. So we can just the will that he wrote before he goes into this condition can be just implemented now. It cannot take effect before death. So it takes effect only after death. Al-wasiyah, it can be more general than just giving something to someone or to someone. It can be some will of a person about some action, like who will make ghusl to that person can be written in the wasiyah. I want, for example, brother Fulan to make ghusl for me when I die. Who will pray as imam for Salat al-Janazah? Normally, one of the person's sons may be imam, or if she is a woman, then her husband be the imam. But if someone wants a specific person, a man, to be imam in Salat al-Janazah, this can be written in the will. Also, if it can be something related to connections between people, like there was a family problem between a person and his brother, and his will to the children, visit your uncle and be kind to your uncle, for example. And there are some conditions, of course, for all of this. So it's not only about wealth, about money, what to give to whom. It can include other things that are not related to money or wealth. The will is part of the Islamic Sharia, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Baqarah, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خيرا الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, it is written for you, so that it is sharia from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إذا حضر أحدكم الموت, when someone of you is the death time comes for one of you, إن ترك خيرا الوصية, whatever خير he or she wants to tell the others, should write this in wasiyah, in a will. للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين, mostly to the parents and the family members, if he wants or she wants to give something. حقا على المتقين, this should be done for al-muttaqin. So a person from al-muttaqin, the good Muslims, should not wait with a will, should be written. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said in the hadith reported by Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu in Al-Bukhari and Muslim, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, ما حق امرئ مسلم يبيت ليلتين وله شيء يريد أن يوصي فيه. Any Muslim should not sleep 2 nights and he has an intention, or she has intention, to write something for his or her wasiyah. إلا ووصيته مكتوبة عند رأسه, should not wait 2 days before the wasiyah is written under his head. It means that put in a safe place, either under his head when he's sleeping, or giving to someone to keep it. So if you intend to give wasiyah with something or to someone, you need to write this. You need to write this and give it to someone who can manage, who has the authority to implement what you have written in the will. To someone who has the authority to implement what you have written in the will. Either someone from the family that you know that everyone that is concerned with the will listen to this person, or if you are not sure, then to take the legal or the formal procedure to register this will, so that no one can object or no one can resist the implementation of this will. So this is the dalil, the proof from Quran and Sunnah about the will. Then there are some rules for the will. First, every Muslim, rule number one, every Muslim should write down all what he borrowed, if he or she borrowed something from some people. So this is the rights of others, or his duties towards others, and also his own rights. If someone borrowed money from him or from her, this should be also written in the will. Unless he or she forgive that person, a person that borrowed some money from you, and you forgive this person. You are not intending to ask this person to pay this money back. Maybe if he or she is a needy person and you know that it is difficult for him to pay back, so you say, okay, I don't want him to pay back. But if you are expecting this person to pay back the loan, whether it is due in a specific time, deadline or not, this has to be written, because then if you die, it is the right of your children or the ones who will inherit from you. So this is rule number one. The most important is the rights of others. If you borrowed some money from someone, because this is very dangerous. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned in the hadith that the shaheed, the one who dies as shaheed, the one who is killed in a battle fighting in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing jihad fi sabilillah, this is shaheed. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, for the shaheed, all of his sins are forgiven with the first drop of his blood, because this is a person who will be killed. So most probably he will be bleeding. So with the first drop of his blood, all of the sins will be forgiven, the minor sins and the major sins. Then after some time, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam called the Sahaba. After he said that, he said, Jibreel came to me now and told me to add, except the loan. Except the loan. If this person who died as shaheed borrowed some money from someone and died before paying back, everything will be forgiven, minor sins and major sins, except the loan. So this has to be paid back after his death. Otherwise, it will not be forgiven. It means that the person who lended him the money will come Yawm al-Qiyamah asking for his rights. And if this loan is not paid back after that person died, but from his wealth, then that person can get it back Yawm al-Qiyamah as hasanat, not as money, because the currency Yawm al-Qiyamah is hasanat and sayyat. So this is the first rule. The Muslim should write everything, rights and duties, what he should pay to others and what others should pay to him or to her. Rule number two, it is mustahab, it is preferred, it is advisable to write in the will that you give some of your money to be paid in the paths of khair, like sadaqah to the needy people, like building a masjid, like donating to some yatim organization, or some Quran school, or some association that help people to buy some water fridge in a masjid, something that will be khair, continued khair after you die, especially sadaqah al-jariyah. Sadaqah al-jariyah, it means continued something that is continuing, not just money that you will give to someone to buy food and that's it. It's good to give to something that will continue, like a school that will be generations after generations will be educated in this school, a masjid that everyone, a lot of people will pray 5 times every day, some mushafs that people will read Quran for some time. So it is mustahab to give part of your money for the khair directions of spending. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you 1/3 of your money, 1/3 of your money to that you are allowed to give as wasiyah, as will. You can give up to 1/3 of your money. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the money that he gave to you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to us and will stay with us until we die, 1/3 of this is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase our hasanat. So we should use it to increase our hasanat if possible. So this is rule number 2. It is advisable to write in the will to give part of your money for the khair directions. Number 3, maximum is 1/3. Maximum is 1/3. The dalil that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he told to Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu when he was very sick. He was rich, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam visited him, and he thought that he will die. He thought that he will die. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he thought that he will die with this sickness. So he asked the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, I want to make sadaqah before I die. Should I make sadaqah with 2/3 of my money, of my wealth? And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said no. He said, then half. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said no. He said, then 1/3, Ya Rasulullah. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said 1/3 is okay, but it is much. It means that it is the maximum. So this is the 3rd rule. The 4th rule, it cannot be for anyone who will inherit from that person, because the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Inna Allah qad a'ta kull dhi haqqin haqqahu fala wasiyyata liwarith." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defined the right for everyone. So you cannot write on your will that I want my daughter to take this, which is more than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defined for her. Or I want my son, one of my sons, to take more than the other. It's not allowed. You like one of your sons more than the other, it's not allowed to write this in your will, because after you die, the money is not yours. The money is not yours, it's theirs. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defined what each of them will take. So about those who live in a country that the Islamic rules are not implemented, then every Muslim should write this will, because the government will not apply the Islamic rules. And if you write in your will, I want my wealth to be divided based on the Islamic rules, this is a very general statement. It does not include any practical division. So you can, I don't think even the lawyer will accept that you write it like this if you register it with a lawyer, because it does not mean anything. Because it means that you have to consult someone who is a Muslim scholar to define it. Then who to consult? This is something that is very vague word. It doesn't mean anything. So before that, you should know, based on the rules of inheritance, that you write specifically, I want, for example, my son to take this amount or this percentage, and my daughter to take this percentage, my wife to take this percentage, or my husband to take this percentage, my father to take this, based on the Islamic rules. And this has to be defined specifically in the will, and then registered. And based on this registration, because you are the one who own the money, you are the one who own the money, and you have the right to define how to divide it after you die. Otherwise, the rules of the state will apply. The rules of the state, as I have read, it is 2/3 of the wealth goes to the children. 2/3 of the wealth go to the children. Mostly the rest will go to the spouse, wife, or husband, and it will be divided equally between the children. This is how it is. And it is not according to Islam, because the wife in Islam does not take 1/3, and the husband does not take 1/3. And the children are not the same, because the responsibility in Islam, it is for the man to sponsor the family. So, and there can be others who have rights to take other than wife and children, or husband and children. So you need to write this will and register it. So no special thing to be given to anyone who will inherit, which means that if a person from your family who will not inherit according to the current situation, who will not inherit, for example, if someone has boys, sons, even one, and wife, his brother will not inherit anything. His brother will not inherit anything. So in this case, can he write something in the will that I want this amount of money to go to my brother? Yes, because he will not inherit. So he can give up to 1/3 to those who will not inherit. Other than this, those who will inherit cannot give. If there is any condition when the brother will inherit, cannot, then that person cannot include any share for him in the will. For those who, the rule number 5, if the person doesn't have anyone to inherit, no wife, no children, no parents alive, no siblings, a person who doesn't have any relatives who can inherit, then that person can provide, can write in the will to give all of his money or her money in some khair direction. But in case there is anyone to inherit, maximum, even if this person is just one person, if he has just one son, no wife, for example. By the way, if in case of divorce, the wife or the one who ex-wife does not inherit, and ex-husband does not inherit as well. So she has to be his wife the time he dies, and he has to be her husband the time she died. There is one good story about this related to amana, honesty. A person who was married and he married another wife. And this is a real story in another country. and his wife, he died, and his wife, his first wife, knew about his other wife after he died. After he died, she knew that he has another wife. So she understood that she has some right in the inheritance. So she asked where she is, and she contacted her to give her her right, because this is aman. Then that other wife told her, I cannot take this because he divorced me before he died. So this was amana from both of these women. The first woman, who was the first wife, she didn't want to take anything haram because she knew that there is another woman who has right, even if she didn't like that her husband married, but these are rights, and this is about halal and haram. And the other woman was also honest because no one knew that he divorced her, but she didn't want to take anything haram, so she told this so that she doesn't take haram. So it is very important, these huquq, rights in Islam. No one takes anything haram, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows if no one else will have control to question, or there is some information that only you know about, you have to remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything. Rule number 6, it is haram to write something haram in the will. It is haram to write something haram in the will. So if someone wrote in the will that your uncle Fulan, never talk to him, he was always bad to me, never talk to him, never talk to his children, this is haram. So even if your father said this, don't obey him, because it will be harmful for him. If you obeyed him, then he can have adhab because of this. Some people, they deal with a person who died with some like holy circle. Because he is dead, then he's a star. Whatever he did was right. Whatever he said was right. No. He's human. He did some good things and some bad things. The reference for what is right and what is wrong is Islam, not what your father said or what your mother said. The one who died is not a star. The one who died, he is in a critical situation because there is no way for him to correct his mistakes, or there is no way for her to correct her mistakes. There are many things from what he said or she said or he did or she did, they are feeling sorry for. They are repenting. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, everyone who died will repent. Everyone. If he was or if he or she was a bad person, will wish that he or she did not do these sins during his or her life. And if he or she was a good person, most of his or her deeds are hasanat, he or she will feel sad that he did not do more. He or she could do more good things. So everyone will feel sorry after he died, after he dies or she dies. So never consider what your father said or what your father advised or your mother advised you to do as the reference for right or wrong. This is ignorance. And many people do this. My father who died told me to do this. Then what? Is it right or wrong? If it is wrong, then it is haram to do it. Even if he wrote it in his will, if it is something haram, then if you do it, you will harm him. And you will take the sin also of implementing or applying something that you know it is haram just because your father said so or your father wrote so. If you want to save your father who wrote this wrong or haram thing, if you really love him and you want to save him, don't do the wrong things that he said to do or wrote to do. So it is haram to apply or implement anything written in the will that is haram. It is haram for you, for the person who writes the will to write anything haram. And if he or she did that after he dies, it is haram for his children or the ones who will inherit from him or the ones who will have the authority to implement the will, to implement it if there is anything haram in it. Number 7, the Islamic duties. The Islamic duties have to be considered before anything written in the will. For example, if someone died and this person borrowed some money and he forgot or she forgot to write in the will that I borrowed this, for example, 50,000 kroners from this person, and you know about it, then even if it was not written, you have to pay this money back to save that dead. If you really love this person and you want to save him, because it will be in his or her neck yawm al-qiyamah, and that person can take this money. This 50,000 kroners can be taken as hasanat yawm al-qiyamah. So this has to be considered before looking at the will, before seeing what he or she wrote in the will. Also, there are some other things like a zakah. If that person did not give the zakah of his or her money in the due date, because as we described in the lecture of zakah, al-hawl, 1 year, if 1 year passed after owning the nisab, then it is due time for zakah. If that person did not give the zakah in the due time, then this has to be taken from his or her wealth before looking at the will and before distributing the wealth among those who will inherit it, before everything. If there is kaphara, what is the meaning of kaphara? It is some money or something to be paid as tawbah from some dhanb or some oath. Someone who swore and was sincere, serious in swearing, wallahi, I will do this, and he did not do. Then this person has the duty to feed 10 miskeens, 10 needy people, each one with 1 full meal, or the amount, the equivalent amount of money. If he did not do this and his wife knew that he did not do that, then it is her duty to tell his family member and the children that he one day he swore to do this and he did not do, and he forgot to feed 10 miskeens. So this has to be taken out of the money before. So this is one example of kaphara. If that person had the possibility to do Hajj, so he or she was rich enough, was wealthy enough to register and buy the ticket for going to Hajj, and was healthy enough to do Hajj. But year after year he was postponing, or she was postponing, not for any good reason. because the Hajj is duty for those who can do it in terms of two things, health and wealth. If you can pay for the journey, and if you are healthy enough to go and do this tough journey, because it is a tough journey, if you are strong enough and if you have the wealth, then you should do Hajj. You don't need to do it this year. You can do it at any time. You are obliged to do it at least one time, only one, but when you are alive. If you did not do it when you are alive, and you was able to do it, because if one person died and he was not able, this is very important. He was very rich, a millionaire, but he was not able to do it because he was sick. Then it is not a duty to do Hajj after he died by someone else, because he was not able to do it. But if he or she was able to do Hajj and did not do Hajj, then the expenses of Hajj for someone to do Hajj for that person should be subtracted from the wealth before anything in the will and before dividing it among those who will inherit. So zakah, Hajj, if the person was able, any loans, all of this has to be before the will, before looking at the will or before considering whatever written in the will. This is number 7. Number 8, for a person who gives a will, this has to be a person who's able to manage or to write something about his own wealth. Mentally able, mature enough, not a child, not a person who have mental problems that this person is not responsible. Has to be a person who is responsible in terms of age and in terms of mental condition. If a person is not responsible in terms of age or mental condition, then the will is not considered, because this person can be cheated by someone else to write something that he or she will not do if he or she was in a good mental condition, for example. So this is number 8. Number 9, it is haram to write something in the will, to give some money or wealth to be spent in anything haram. In anything haram. So if someone wrote in the will that I want to give part of my money to a church, this is haram. A Muslim cannot give part of his money to the church. This is haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, everyone yawm al-qiyam. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا تزول قدم عبد يوم القيام. When we stand at the front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for hisab, we will not be allowed to go, meaning that the hisab will not be finished before we are asked about certain things. Our age, how did we spend? Our health, how did we use our body? And our wealth, how did we earn and how did we spend? So the money can be haram not only if you earn your money in haram. If it is halal money in terms of earning, but if you spend it in haram, it will still be haram money. And this is very important. The source of your money can be halal, but you can spend it in a haram way, then it is haram money. and this haram money will be punished because of this haram spending in Yawm al-Qiyamah, even if the source was in halal. You cannot spend your money to some temple or some place of worshipping where kufr happens. Some people who are praying to the cross or praying to someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether it is a church, a synagogue, or a Hindu temple, or a Buddhist, whatever, any other thing other than a Muslim place of worshipping, which is a masjid, it is haram. It is haram. Even if that person wrote this in the will, this should not be considered. Or to buy something haram, like, for example, to donate to a music school, for example, or to a dancing school. It's not kufr, but it's still haram. So a dancing school, what is this? This is something haram. When girls dance at the front of others, it is against the Islamic haya. So a person who is spending money in this direction, this is haram money. This is haram money. Or to a club where people stay and dance and drink alcohol, this is haram. Any haram direction of spending, and even if this person, because not everyone is a good Muslim. Not everyone is a good Muslim. Some Muslims, especially those who live in non-Muslim countries, and this is not the only exception, there are some also who live in Muslim countries who are even worse. But the ones who live in a non-Muslim country, in a kafir environment, they are more subjected to this change in attitudes and change in heart, because you are living among kuffar. So if you don't have a strong iman, then your iman and your attitudes towards Islam will change. It happens to most Muslims with certain degrees, with certain grades. Some Muslims, they just, their level of religiousness decrease, and sometimes, and for some Muslims, they even reach to a worse condition, that they argue for some haram things that they are halal. So some Muslims, they do the haram and they know it is haram. And some Muslims, they go beyond this. They argue for haram things that it is halal, for fard things that they are not fard. And some Muslims, they go beyond this to claim for non-Muslims that they are good people. Why they are going to Jahannam? Some Muslims, they deserve to go to Jahannam more than them. And some others, they go beyond this and they leave Islam. And they call themselves ex-Muslims. So it depends on which grade you are. Even if you are in the first grade, just your level of religiousness change, you can control this. There are some Muslims who become even more religious in a non-Muslim country, more than when they were in a Muslim country. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change some people to the opposite. But the vast majority of Muslims who come and live in a non-Muslim country, they change in the other direction with different degrees and different levels. So it is very possible that a Muslim can write in the will to spend some money in a haram direction. This should not be considered by the person who have the authority, if he or she can do that, if he or she has the authority to consider or not consider. If it is something registered in a formal or legal way, then there is nothing to do, and he or she, that person who died, has to carry the consequences at the front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yawm al-qiyamah. But if it is not formally registered, if it is just something that he told someone to do, and that person is a Muslim and know that this is haram, if you want to save this person who's your father or your mother or whatever, if you want to save him, don't do what he told you because it is haram. Number 10, it is mustahab. It is writing the will or donating some of the money in the directions of khair. It is advisable for the person who is rich. But if that person is not rich, and his children and wife and the family members who will inherit from him or for her really need all of this money because it is not much, and that person knows this, then he should not write. Yes, he has the right to give 1/3, but the money is already very little that you will leave to your children and your wife. So don't write anything, because it is very important for them to take what they need. Don't leave them poor after you. This is what the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said to Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu when he first wanted to write in the will to give 2/3. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said no. Half. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said no. 1/3. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said yes, and this is much. It means that it is the maximum. And Sa'd radiallahu anhu, he was rich. Then the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said at the end, لَأَنْ تَذَرَ أَبْنَاءَكَ أَغْنِيَاء خَيْرٌ مِنْ أَنْ تَذَرَهُمْ فُقَرَاء يَتَكَفَّفُونَ النَّاسِ. To leave your children rich, better than leaving them poor, asking people for help. So if you know that you are not rich, and what you leave, someone, for example, all what he's going to leave for his children is 30,000 kroners or 50,000 kroners, or less than this. So this is very little amount of money. So you should not write in the will that I want 1/3 to go to this direction, because your children are more important than other people. So this is number 10. Number 11, it is haram to implement what is in the will if the purpose was to cause harm to someone. For example, someone is writing in the will that I want to give this amount of money to that person. And you know that this money who will give to this person will use against someone else. You know that this person will use this money against someone else, will cause harm to someone else. Then it is under the haram spending. Even if it is not directly haram, but everyone knows that this person, when he gets the money, will use against someone else. Then because in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran about the will, غَيْرَ مُضَارٍ, provided that no harm will happen. If there is a certainty about harm, so it is haram to implement that. Number 12, the will cannot be accepted or implemented or applied before the person actually dies, because this is the time when the will is effective and when the inheritance is effective, not before. Some people, they do some other things. They try to make some trick. What is that trick? He is alive, and he know that when he or she, he's alive, and he knows that if he dies, then he has 2 boys and 1 girl, and he knows that this boy will take this amount, that boy will take the other this amount, and that girl will take this amount. He like this boy, he doesn't like that boy. So he doesn't wait, he just give everything and write it in the name of his children. So that I will write everything in the name of my son and my daughter, and I will not write anything for my other son. Now I don't own anything. If I die, everything is given to them already. This is haram, because the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the hadith, if you give something to your children, you cannot make difference between them. You cannot make difference between them. So you cannot give one of them more than the other. So this trick is haram in Islam, because this person wants to violate the rules that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put for the inheritance. So he wants to make early inheritance so that he's still alive, he's in charge. So he put everything based on what he wants, not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided before he dies. So this is a right that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give to others. It is your money when you are alive. It is not your money after you die. And of course, the ignorant rules that are existing in some Muslim countries, not only Muslim countries, there are other non-Muslim countries who have this rule, but people only talk about Muslim countries. There are many non-Muslim countries. There are many places in Asia and Africa who implement this, and they are not Muslims, that if the family owns a piece of land or some houses, then they don't give it to the girls. They just say, okay, we will give them some money, but we will not give them the land, because we cannot give part of our land to be under the control of a man who is outside the family, meaning the husband of that girl. If she gets this land, then the one who will manage it is her husband. And we cannot let a person who's a stranger manage part of our family land. So we will not give her her share, we will just give her some money. And this is haram. This is ignorance, and this is against Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defined the rights of everyone, and this has to be applied. Number 13, a person who wrote a will and registered it has the full right to change it or to cancel it completely, as long as he's still alive. He can change his mind, so you can write a will today and change it afterwards. Or you can cancel it. It is your authority, something that you write, and you have the right to change it. Of course, after you die, you don't have that right. And it doesn't work, of course, if someone say, I saw my father in the dream and he told me, do this and change my will. No, this doesn't work. Because the one who came to you in the dream is not necessarily the soul of your father. It can be the shaitan telling you to do something. And even if it is your father's soul came to you in the dream telling you something, it is too late. And this cannot be considered. The person can change his will only before he dies. If it is something that you think that he really wants to change based on what you saw in the dream, then he doesn't have any authority after he died. But you can tell the others about it, and you can see if this is something good to do about it. But the person himself or herself does not have any authority after death. So this is number 13. Number 14, the will, or the things that can be written in the will to give to someone, it can be given to anyone who is able to get or to receive. So that person can be Muslim or not. It is not haram to give part of the money to a person who is kafir, but it is haram to give it to something that is kufr. And these are two different things. A church is a place of kufr. What is done there is kufr. A temple is a place of kufr. What is done there is kufr. It is haram for a Muslim to give money to a church, to or a place of worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if your father or your mother had a non-Muslim friend and he wanted or she wanted to give some of the money to that person, yes, it is possible. It is not haram. So it can be given to a non-Muslim as long as it is to a person, not to something that you know for sure that it is something haram or something kufr. But if this person, you know that this person is an enemy of Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your father, because your father was not a good Muslim, he had friends with this very bad person, then this money will be haram money to go to that person who can use it in a bad to do bad things or in his or her enmity to Islam. So these were 13 rules about the will. Are there any questions? If only girls. Yeah, we will come to the inheritance and things are divided. Any questions about the will? Okay, so this was about the will. Now about the rules of inheritance. It is called in Sharia, in Islam, al-fara'id wal-mawarith. Al-fara'id wal-mawarith. And fara'id is the plural of farida. Something that is defined. An order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is defined. And al-mawarith are the inheritance or inheritances. This is a science or field of the Islamic Sharia, which is a science that all Muslims should have some background about or some background on. Either they themselves or they need to have contact with someone who is trusted, who can teach them about this. In Sharia, the word fard in the science of mawarith or in the scientific field of al-mawarith is a specific amount that is to be given to someone who deserves it. A specific amount to be given to someone who deserves it. And the ilm al-fara'id is the ilm that defines the rules. Who gets what? Who gets what? There are rights for the wealth after the person dies. These rights are related to Tariqah. Tariqah in Arabic is the wealth that a person leaves. So wealth is a general word. If you are alive, it is your wealth. If you die, then it is your tariqah. So it is your wealth when you own it, when you are alive. After you die, it becomes not your wealth. Wealth, it means tharwa. Tharwa in Arabic. It is not your sarwa anymore, it is your tariqah. So tariqah is the wealth that was belonging to you when you was alive, and now it doesn't belong to you because you died. By the way, if someone give part of his wealth that I want this my jewelries to be buried with me, this is not allowed. This is haram. As long as it is something that someone else can make use of, it cannot be buried with that person, because it doesn't belong to him or to her anymore. Only the person's body and his kafan, nothing else. There are some things, some expenses that needs to be carried out before considering the will and inheritance, and this has to be paid from the tariqah before anything else. First, what is needed for the kafan, the death clothes, and the barrier and the funeral for this person. All of these expenses has to be carried from the tariqah, from the wealth of that person before anything else. It should not be overspent. Some people, they spend a lot of money for funerals. They rent a very big place. They pay a lot of money and spend a lot of money for food and drinks. It's a funeral, it is not a wedding. So the ones who are responsible for the tariqah should not overspend, but the expenses of the burial, the kafan, the funeral should be subtracted from the tariqah, including the money that will be paid for those who will do the things, like the ones who will bury it. If there is someone who will make ghusl and will take some money for that, pay this person from the tariqah of that man. Not underspend and not overspend. Don't be bakhil, so that the money subtracted from the tariqah is less, so that you do dhulm, for example, for those who will make ghusl, and you don't pay them what they asked for, you pay them too little, because this will be dhulm. And this dhulm will be in your sayyat, not that person's sayyat, because you are the one who do this. Not to underspend, not to be bakhil, and not to be musrif, not to do israf, to overspend. Because you are a big family, and your father's funeral has to be in that place because he died, your father died. He's not that manager or this person anymore. He was a professor, he was a manager. Now he's just a dead person. So it has to be simple. Number two, it has to be taken from the tariqah. Any loans, any rights. So again, any rights has to be taken out of the tariqah, and zakah or hajj or anything like zakat al-fitr. One of the things that should be also considered is nadhr. Nadhr. What is nadhr? Nadhr, if someone promised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if something happened, I will do something. Someone who did not have any children, and he promised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he gets a child, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him with a boy, someone who had only girls and he wanted a boy, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him a boy, he will spend, for example, 100,000 kroners fi sabilillah. This is nadhr. And it is as long as he promised. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him what he asked for, then he must implement this nadhr. And if he did not during his life, it has to be taken from the tariqah after he died. So this is like right the same as zakah and law. So this is number 2. All of the rights has to be taken first. Yeah, so there is another question about Tariqah. So Tariqah again is the wealth after the person died. It is named Tariqah. After the person died, his or her wealth is named Tariqah. So when we say it is subtracted from the Tariqah, subtracted from the wealth of that dead person. Number 3, to take out everything that is written in the will from the Tariqah before division. So first, the expenses for the funeral and burial. Second, any rights like loans, zakah, hajj, nadr, everything. Third, anything that is written in the will, which fulfills the 13 conditions that we mentioned. That is nothing haram, nothing is written to give privilege to any one of the ones who will inherit. Anything written in the will has to be taken out of the Tariqah first. Then number 4, after everything from these 3 types is already taken, then it comes to the inheritance. The remaining of the Tariqah, it comes to the inheritance for the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defined who will inherit from this person based on the Islamic rule. And the inheritance, the definition is the transferring the wealth of the dead person to a person who is alive. Someone died, and the wealth of this person, which is called Tariqah, then is transferred to some ones who are alive, according to what is mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the definition of inheritance. The Tariqah, part of it is going from the wealth of a person who died to people who are alive, according to Quran and Sunnah rules. Who are the ones who inherit and how this is defined? Who are the ones who inherit and how this is defined? There are reasons for inheritance. There are reasons for inheritance. Why someone will have the right to inherit from someone else? First is marriage. Marriage. So the marriage contract with the Islamic marriage contract with wali and 2 witnesses. It has to be a correct marriage, an Islamic marriage. So a wife can inherit from her husband and the husband can inherit from his wife. We will come to the amounts later, but we are just mentioning about who and why a person can inherit from someone else. So this is the first reason, marriage. Second is the family relation. The family relation, the blood relation. The blood relation. And this can be like the ancestors and successors and branches. Ancestors, it means father, grandfather, grandfather's father, grandfather's grandfather, going up. Successors, son, grandson, grandson's son, grandson's grandson, down. So ancestors and successors and branches who are, the relation is connected to the successors or to the ancestors, like father, like brothers, and who are connected to the person through the parents, uncles, for the children, if no, for the children, no, but for the ancestors, brothers, and uncles. And their children, cousins, who are from the uncles, but their children. So from the branches, brothers, direct brothers, and uncles, who are either aunties or uncles, siblings of parents, and their children. So these are the types of people who has the right to inherit, either because of marriage or because of blood relation. There are some reasons for preventing inheritance. When someone does not have the right to inherit, a person is prohibited from inheritance. What are these conditions? Murder. If someone killed his father, then he cannot inherit from him. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لَيْسَ لِلْقَاتِلِ مِنَ الْمِيرَاثِ شَيْءٍ. The killer or the murderer doesn't have the right to get anything from the Tariqah, from mirath. Slavery. If a person is a slave, the slave doesn't inherit from his master. And the slave does not provide inheritance to someone else. But this rule is not practical now. Third, difference in religion, and this is important. A Muslim cannot inherit from kafir, and a kafir cannot inherit from Muslim. A Muslim does not inherit from kafir, and the kafir does not inherit from Muslim. And this in Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, the hadith in Sahih Muslim, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لا يرث الكافر المسلم ولا المسلم الكافر. The kafir doesn't inherit from a Muslim, and the Muslim doesn't inherit from kafir. So what about if you have non-Muslim parents? You should do your best for them to be Muslims. But as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. You cannot provide guidance to whoever you like. It means guidance of heart. You can provide guidance to guide people, to show them the way. But to guide their hearts to actually follow what is right, this is not in our hands. We can try our best to convince people, but there is no guarantee that they will accept. So a person who doesn't have Muslim parents should do his or her best to convince them to be Muslims. But if it didn't work, and you know that this person died as non-Muslim, then the connection between you and this person ended here. You should be good to them when they are alive. But after they died as non-Muslims, you cannot inherit from them. But if, according to the will or according to the formal will, the government is giving me this money, what should I do with it? Don't take it for yourself. You can spend it as sadaqah, give it to the needy people. Give it to the needy people. If you are needy yourself, if you are poor yourself, you can take some of this money because you are poor, not because you are the son of that person. But if you are not poor, then you cannot take this money because it was your non-Muslim kafir father or mother. You cannot take it. And the same, if a person has a wife or children who are not Muslims, do your best to convince them to be Muslims. But if it didn't work, they cannot inherit from you. There is no inheritance between Muslim and Kafir. And this rule is very important, very important. And this doesn't have to do with emotions. The connection between Muslim and Kafir is when they are alive. Because if they die as non-Muslims, as Kafirs, they knew about Islam, they learned about Islam, and they refused to be Muslims. They got properly the message of Islam. And despite that, they did not accept Islam. Because it is not enough for someone to know the truth to follow it. There are many people who know the truth, but there are many reasons for many people that they don't want to follow the truth, even they are sure 100% that it is the truth. We don't want to follow it. So, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when his uncle died, when his uncle Abu Talib died, his uncle was the most kind person who was not Muslim throughout history. You will never find a person who is not Muslim who would be more kind and more supporting to Islam and to the Muslims more than Abu Talib, the uncle of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So never think that your father or your mother or your brother would be a better person than the uncle of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You will never find a person like this throughout history who was more kind than Abu Talib and was not a Muslim. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam tried to convince him to be a Muslim, and he didn't want, because he didn't want people to say about him that he left the religion of his ancestors because he was afraid of death. He was dying, and he was still worried about what people will say about him. He died as non-Muslim, Kafir. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لَأَسْتَغْفِرَنَّ لَكَ مَا لَمْ أُنْهَ عَنْكَ. I will ask Allah to forgive you unless Allah tells me not to do. I will ask Allah to forgive you unless Allah tells me not to do. Then the ayat of Surah At-Tawbah were revealed to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, ما كان للنبي والذين آمنوا أن يستغفروا للمشركين ولو كانوا أولي قربى من بعد ما تبين لهم أنهم أصحاب الجحيم. It is never allowed. ما كان للنبي. It is never allowed for the Prophet والذين آمنوا and the believers أن يستغفروا للمشركين, to ask forgiveness for the kuffar, for the mushrikeen, for the non-Muslims. ولو كانوا أولي قربى, even if they are close relatives or family members. من بعد ما تبين لهم أنهم أصحاب الجحيم. After you know that they are going to hell, means that after you know that they died as non-Muslims and they have chosen themselves to die as non-Muslims. So you cannot even pray for them. You cannot pray for them. You can pray for them after they, when they were alive. Pray for them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides them. If they are sick, you can pray for them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure them. With everything good, you can pray for them. But after they died, you are not allowed to pray for them. Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وما كان استغفار إبراهيم لأبيه إلا عن موعدة وعدها إياه. Ibrahim alayhi salam, his father was kafir. and he was making istighfar for his father, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive. But after his father died, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَلَمَّا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُ أَنَّهُ عَدُوٌّ لِلَّهِ تَبَرَّأَ مِنْهُ. After he realized that his father died as an enemy of Allah, a kafir, تَبَرَّأَ مِنْهُ. He said that he is not my father anymore. After he died as non-Muslim. Because يوم القيامة, the Muslims will go to Jannah and the non-Muslims will go to Jahannam, the ones who chose to refuse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then your connections should be cut with these people once you know that they died as non-Muslims. There can be some hope for those who did not know about Islam and they were interested to know more and to read and to understand, and they died before they choose Islam. Because if someone decided to investigate and understand and use his or her mind, then this person, and be sincere in this without predefined attitudes, then this person must accept Islam at the end, because Islam is the only logical religion from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyone who is sincere to find the truth must accept Islam at the end. There is no other way, or there is no something else to be to end with. But if that person tried, if that person tried and did not have the time or did not manage to reach to Islam and died before that, but he died trying, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if this person was truthful, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept him. And there are other conditions, other examples in the history of Islam for people who did not become Muslims, but they were trying to find the truth. Just excuse me for a few seconds. For the third rule, again, there is no inheritance between Muslim and Kafir. This is the rule of inheritance between Muslim and Kafir. No inheritance between Muslim and Kafir. I know that it can be difficult for some people to accept this, but this is how it is, because your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must have priority over connection with anyone else. Connection to family, connection to country, connection to race, connection to anything. And it applies also to loyalty. Your loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be more important than loyalty to anything or anyone else. One example of this is Khalid ibn al-Walid radiallahu anhu. His father was one of the enemies to Islam. And there is some ayat, some verses in the Quran that tells about his father and his punishment in hell. And when Khalid radiallahu anhu became Muslim, these were the most difficult verses for him to accept, because it was about his father. And he was very good son to his father. His father died as kafir. And at that time, Khalid also was kafir himself. But after Khalid became Muslim, he knew that his father died as kafir and will go to hell. And some of his friends told him, "Are you going to believe with Muhammad and read some verses that tells about your father that he will be in hell, how can you read this? How can you accept this? He said, my father did not save himself, but I have to save myself, even if he did not. I will not throw myself in hell for him. You see his logical thinking. He loved his father. But when it comes that, okay, if my love will throw me in hell with him, I will not. And after he accepted Islam, he called one of the Muslims who were hafiz, who were memorizing Quran. And he told him to read these specific verses. And he started reading these verses. And after he finished, he said, read them again. I want to hear them again. He said, why those? Why only those? The Quran is big. Why you want only those? He said, I want this for my heart. So he read again. Then he said again. And Khalid was sweating because he wanted to clean his heart, to accept everything in Islam and Quran, and those verses were the most difficult for him to accept. But he pushed himself to accept. And after he read several times, he said, now you can stop. Now my heart is okay. He accepted this. So he didn't want to be half Muslim, accepting some of Islam and some not. So this is the third. There is no inheritance between Muslim and Kafir. Then there are the types of people who inherit. Types of people who inherit. There are two types, males and females. Males and females. There are 7 categories of males. There are 10 categories of males and 7 categories of females. 10 categories of males and 7 categories of females. For males, the first 2 categories, the son and the son's son. The son and the grandson from the son. These are the 2 first categories. 3 and 4, the father and his father. The father and the grandfather from the father's side. The grandson from the daughter's side is different. So when we say the son and the grandson from the son's side, then the father and the father's father, not the mother's father, they are different. The father and the grandfather from the father's side, and going up, if the grandfather's father is also alive, this also considered. And if the grandson has a son also, this is also considered. So going down from the son and going up from the father. Then the brother from any direction. If he is the brother from both parents, or the brother from only the father, but not the mother, or the brother from the mother and not the father. So the brother in any setting. This is 5. 6, the nephew. The nephew from the father's side. So if you have a brother and you both have the same father, then this brother's nephew. The brother from the mother's side, if this has a son, this doesn't inherit from the mother's side, but from the father's side does. But this is considered as a family member. They can inherit in some specific setting, but not among the categories who can inherit directly. Seven and eight, the cousin, the uncle and his son. The uncle and his son. If the uncle is the father's brother and they have the same father, not the brother of your father, just from the mother. This is considered a family member that they can inherit in other conditions, not among the specific categories. And by the way, when we say about family members, there are some conditions when some family members can take even more than the specific categories of inheritance. Number 9, the husband. The husband. Number 10, if the person was a slave and this person was set free. Someone was a slave and someone freed him or freed her, whether the master himself was the one who set him or her free, or someone bought this person from the master, then this is called al-mu'tiq. Al-mu'tiq, the one who paid to set you free if you was a slave. Then if this was a man, then this person has right to inherit as well from you if you die. Conditions like this, when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he bought many Muslim slaves in the beginning time of Islam, when most of the Muslims were among the weak people, the poor people, the slaves, and of course, for the Muslims who were slaves, their masters who were kuffar, they started torturing them, beating them, and not giving them any food, and keep them under the sun, torturing them to leave Islam. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he was rich. To end the suffering of these Muslims, he used his money to buy many of those slaves, including Bilal radiallahu anhu. And he set them all free. When he bought them, he did not keep them as part of his property, but he freed them all. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was al-mu'tiq of all of them. One of the rights of al-mu'tiq, if that person who was a slave died, then al-mu'tiq has some right to get part of his tariqah. So those are the 10 types from males or men. Then 7 types females. First, the daughter, the first 2, daughter and the son's daughter. The daughter and the son's daughter. So the direct daughter, and if the person has a son, then his daughter. Number three, the mother. The mother. Number 4, the grandmother. The grandmother. If the person's mother was not alive, because there is something in inheritance is called al-hajb. Al-hajb. Someone can be a border for someone else to get part of the share of the tariqah. So the mother will make hajb for the grandmother. So if the mother exists, if she's alive, she will prevent the grandmother from getting any part of the inheritance. But if she's not alive, then the grandmother can take share of the inheritance. So 4 is the grandmother if the mother is not alive. 5 is the sister. Sister from any direction, like the same for the brother. The sister from any direction. if she was a sister just from the father, or from the mother, or from both. The sister is a sister and the brother is a brother. Sixth, the wife. For man, the wife. Seventh, al-mu'tiqa, if the man was a slave and a woman bought him or she set him free. Or the woman was a slave and a woman bought her or set her free. She has some right to take part of her tariqah as well. So those are the categories of people based on males and females. 10 males and 7 females. Then the definition or the categories considering the right of inheritance. The categories considering the right of inheritance. There are 3 main categories. There are 3 main categories according to the rules of inheritance. Number 1, the one who gets by fard. Fard. What is the meaning of fard in the terminology of inheritance? Fard, it means that this person gets a specific amount, not more, not less. If that person has the right to inherit, then this person will get just this specific share, which is a specific percentage of the tariqah, not more, not less. So the ones who get their share by fard, only the defined amount. And they are 7. Husband and wife. The two grandmothers from the father side and from the mother side. Husband and wife. Then the 2 grandmothers from the father side and from the mother side. Those are 4. 5th, the mother. The mother. Then the mother's children. The mother's children, whether they are boys or girls. The mother's children means that they are siblings only from the mother's side, not from the father's side. Husband, wife, grandmother from father's side, grandmother from mother's side, mother, mother's son, mother's daughter. 7. They take only a specific amount, not more, not less, if they have the right to inherit, because sometimes they don't have the right to inherit, like what we mentioned in the case of the mother prevents the grandmother. This is category number 1, those who get a specific amount or a specific share that is defined. Category number 2, the ones who inherit by ta'asib. Ta'asib, it means they don't get a specific amount or a specific share from the tariqah, but they get based on how much is left after fard. For example, the wife or the wives get altogether 1/8. 1 divided by 8. They share that. If the person was married to 1 wife, 2 wives, 3, 4, they get 1 divided by 8. If they are 2, then each one get 1 divided by 16. So they get altogether this amount. Not more, not less. But for those who will inherit by ta'asib, they don't get this fraction. It is not defined. After all the fard ones take, then what is remaining, it will be divided among the ones who get by ta'asib. In some conditions, the one who get by fard get more. In some conditions, the one who get by ta'asib get more. So it doesn't mean that there is priority over one type on the other. So who inherit by ta'asib? They are 12. 12. The son and the son's son. The brother from both parents and his son. The brother from the father only and his son. The uncle, who is the father's brother from both parents and his son. The uncle, who is the father's brother just from the father and his son. And al-mu'tiq and al-mu'tiqa, the one who released a person, whether it is a man or a woman. So those are 12. The son, the son's son, the brother from both parents and his son, the brother just from the father and his son, the uncle from both parents for the father and his son, the uncle just from the father and his son, and al-mu'tiq, the one who released if he was a man, and the one who released a person from slavery if was a woman. Those are 12. Then there is the third category, that they can be inheriting by fard or by ta'asib. So they can be subjected to both types depending on the condition. And those are al-ab wal-jad, the father and the grandfather. Those are two, the father and the grandfather. And they are total of 21 categories of people divided under those three rules. The three rules: the rule of al-fard, the rule of al-ta'asib, and the rule of both fard and ta'asib. Are you following me, or it's a bit getting a bit too complex? This is one of the, or let's say in terms of math, this is the most complicated subject in fiqh in terms of math. It has a lot of math in it, but it is not very complicated. Maybe because you hear about it first time, but it is not very complicated. Any questions so far?
It is complicated.
Yeah, but if you have any questions, you can ask at any time, because this.
Yeah, but all these categories that you have mentioned, one doesn't have to give everybody.
No.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Let me make it more simple. I will give you some examples so that it can dissolve the complexity a little bit, to know that you don't need really to consider all of these categories yourself, because in many conditions you don't need to consider yeah, I had written some of this. Yes, yeah. Yeah, because I have written some examples somewhere. And a simple condition, if or a simple case, If someone died and had children, boys and girls, and his wife was not alive, then all the money goes to the children, no one else. There are children, boys and girls, and the wife is not alive. And the wife was not alive and the parents were not alive. Then all the money goes to the boys and girls, no one else. So this is a very well-known case that a person died, and normally if the person died, then the parents don't live more than the son. It can happen, but it is rare that a person die and the parents or one of them is still alive. And he didn't have a wife, then all money will go to the children. And the same for a woman who died and the husband died, and she has children, then everything goes to the children. So it can be as simple as this. If someone died and his wife is there, so first the fard is applied, not ta'sib. The fard is applied. So how is this applied? How much the wife takes? If he did not have any children, if he was with his wife only, they didn't have children, and he did not have any parents, then the wife takes 1/4. The wife takes 1/4. If he has children, the wife takes 1/8, and the rest goes to the children. How it is divided with the children? A boy takes double of the girl. So if this is one boy and 2 girls, so it is divided 50% of the remaining after taking 1/8 for the wife. The remaining 50% goes to the boy, 25% to the first girl, 25% to the second girl. Why? Because in Islam, the man has the duty to sponsor the family. This is why the son takes more than the daughter. But in another case, if it is about the parents, if both parents are alive, and the person did not have children and did not have siblings, then the father takes 1/6 and the mother takes 1/3. So in this case, the female takes double the male. So not in every case the male takes double of the female. The female takes double of the male in some case. The mother takes double of the father. Why is that? Why for the mother and father, the mother can take double of the father, and for children, the boy takes double of the girl? Why is it opposite? Because it is logical. Who has more rights on the man, his father or his mother? His mother. His mother is the one who carried him in her womb for 9 months, and it is very clear in Islam, all in many hadith, that the mother has more rights on the person than the father. And the old people, they don't have much responsibility to sponsor others because they are old. Their children are already grown up. They don't need them to sponsor. But for the children, they are still, they have their lives. They have still young children. And who has the duty to sponsor in Islam? It's the man. So the daughter, doesn't have the duty to sponsor anyone. If she was married, then her husband has the right to sponsor her and her children. If she is not married, then she has the right to sponsor only herself. But if the boy is married, then he has the duty to sponsor himself, his wife, and children. If he's not married, then when he is married, he will have the right to sponsor, the duty to sponsor himself and his wife and children. This is why it is justice for the children that the boy takes double of the girl because of the responsibility. But for the parents, because now there is no responsibility for the father to sponsor anyone because the children are already big, then it is based on who has more rights on the person, and this is the mother. So the mother takes double of the father. So sometimes the female take more, double of the male, sometimes the male takes double of the female, and all of this based on justice. So Islam is justice, justice and mercy. This is what Islam is. There are some more details regarding the fractions for each one. We can go into these more details if you like, or because the time is already, we are running out of time, or we can maybe in a later just mention examples or take questions. And there is some let's see, there are some websites that can provide you with actually the calculation. This is one of them. And I can share my screen to show you. So this is you. You are male or female, you define. So let's say that you are male and your father and mother are not alive. You have, for example, one son and two daughters, or any of the sons and daughters depending on deceased. So let's keep it simple now. Yes, and wife. So this is a very simple calculation. The wife first takes 1/8. Now 1/8 is finished. Now what is remaining? 7/8. 7/8. Then the son takes half of this, 7/16, and the daughters, they share the rest. So this is one simple calculation. Now, if the father is alive, the father takes 1/6. The father takes 1/6. So this is fard. So this has to be taken first. The wife's share and the father's share. If the person has two wives, so they will share 1/16. If they are three, they will all share 1/8. So 1/24, and no change for the others. I mean the percentage. Of course, this for the son and daughters, this will be subtracted. Yeah, there will be no change in case of increasing the number of wives, because it will be in total 1/8. If the mother is there, she also takes 1/6 because there are children. So the father takes 1/6, and the mother takes 1/6 because there are children. In this case, they take the same. So it gives you a very good explanation. I found that this one is like covering most of the cases. It does not cover all the cases, so you cannot take it like for granted that it will work for everything, but most of the cases can be covered by this application. So if you have any questions, if you like to have more details in the next lecture about this, so that you know how to calculate yourself, or if you want to have some questions about specific cases, or if you think that this was enough for you, not to get more about this, because there are some things that has to be considered only also about not about the calculations. For example, the ones who can be prevented from inheritance. There are different types or different reasons for prevention. This is not this will not be long to explain, but it needs also some explanation. So you decide, inshallah, how to continue this, if you would like to continue in more details.
Yeah, inshallah, we'll take it on a later on date.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah.
Any other questions? Okay, we make dua, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. It was good.
Okay. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. اللهم صل على محمد في الأولين، صل على محمد في الآخرين، وصل على محمد في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين. اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معصيتك، ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك، ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا، ومتعنا اللهم بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقواتنا ما أحييتنا، واجعله الوارث منا، واجعل ثأرنا على من ظلمنا، وانصرنا على من عادانا، ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا، ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا منتهى أملنا، ولا تسلط علينا من لا يرحمنا. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين، وارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين، واكشف الهم والغم والكرب عنا وعن المسلمين. اللهم اكفنا بحلالك عن حرامك، واغننا بفضلك عمن سواك، ولا تحوجنا ولا تذلنا إلا إليك. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان، ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا، وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا اغفر لنا ولوالدينا وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. وصل اللهم على محمد وآله وصحابته وتابعين خير وإحسان إلى يوم الدين.
Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.